My body is ready.
I shaved yesterday just for the podcast.
All right.
Brazilian vaccine.
Don't move! Don't fucking move! Put your hands in the air! Put your hands in the air! Put them up! Get on your knees! Hey! Hey!
Hello and welcome to The Table's Edge, a Spectre Operations and other modern war games podcast. My name is Ben, and with me today is my co-host Dan.
And I'm very excited to be here. Hi, Ben. Well, first, thanks everybody for taking the time to listen to our podcast unknowingly. I'm very excited to talk about one of our favorite game systems. So what is this podcast about, and what are our future plans, and what is all this about? Why are you doing this?
Well, Dan, I think the biggest thing is that we're looking to give back to the community, and that includes, I guess, spreading knowledge, if that's skills and hobby tips and tricks, to throwing out unknown manufacturers or little-known manufacturers of miniatures, of games, different game systems, niche games, and, other things too, like different scenarios and kind of what we're up to in the hobby, maybe some battle reports or something like that.
I think the main thing is, well, we all consume YouTube, we all consume several different podcasts. Definitely one of our motivators is the Rules of Engagement podcasts. Definitely for you, Ben. It's like your
Yes.
push forward to do this own podcast. I absolutely agree. I mean, we all are now for some time into the hobby, painting miniatures, prepping them and everything. Over the time, watching other people do it, reading on forums, Discord, everywhere. We get our own knowledge, and we just want to give back, as you said, to the community, to give our skills free of charge to the community. Sadly, some skills are locked behind some patrons, and
Fair warning, you get what you pay for, so you're not paying for anything. And I think that's another thing. We're here just to have fun. We're not looking to make any money off this or anything. We just want to give back because, like Dan said, between YouTube and different podcasts and whatever, those are the things that really motivate me. So if I can spread that love out, that's what I want to do. So Dan, tell me a little bit about yourself and the hobby.
So, about a hobby, I actually came into contact. I mean, I've way back, I collected comics, like Lobo and Batman comics and things. And back in the comic stores, I always saw those guys playing with small miniatures. It was like Warhammer something, I don't know. It was pretty interesting, but it doesn't catch me, and so interesting that I would pursue this interest more. However, after my friends group and Milsim group for Airsoft kind of broke down because we all get older, most of them got families and just work and everything, there was no time for us to play. I was looking for another, let's say, outlet for this hobby aspect, and while back then doing with a buddy of mine a Russian special forces focused blog which was called Group RL, I came into the Spectre website, and I was embraced with some very beautiful painted Spetsnaz miniatures. And even having no idea how the game works, I was already into it. And I ordered, $200 worth of miniatures with the rulebook. Back then it was the version 1 Spectre rulebook. And this was actually my first step into wargaming. And many YouTube hours later, I started painting and ended up going into many more game systems like Bolt Action, Zona Alpha, and Frostgrave. But Spectre still is and will be one of my, let's say, childhood love.
Yeah, your main squeeze.
In terms of wargaming, and that's why we make this podcast. It's so underrated. It's sadly not very spread and known, and just to underline that. And you, Ben, how did you came into the hobby and specific to Spectre Operations?
Sure. Well, I've been wargaming since 2013, and I started out with Flames of War, World War II stuff. I had always liked models as a kid and history. And my girlfriend at the time and I were walking through a store, and she saw them sitting on this shelf, and she's like, you like tanks and stuff? I'm like, yeah. She's like, oh, check these out. She's like, there's a game. I'm like, oh, sweet. So I just kind of started that way. I didn't get really into playing with people because I didn't know there was a community of people that played. I knew online there was, but I didn't know anything locally. And so I went from Flames of War, and then I found Bolt Action. When Bolt Action just came out, I picked that up. Again, wasn't playing with anybody except for maybe one buddy here or there when I had the miniatures. And then I met my main nemesis, Anthony. Yeah, he's my main opponent for most of my game systems. We'd be like, hey, try this game out yet? Oh, no, you should do it. So he and I played Bolt Action together quite a bit, and in early 2020, like January, he showed me the Spectre Operations website. That was like, oh, that's cool. Moderns really aren't my bag. I maybe had a little hesitation about playing something that was going after a contemporary conflict. I didn't want to step on any toes, anything like that. I had friends, or I still have friends, I should say, that served in the military or serving, and I want to respect that, obviously. And I was just amazed at, first off, the quality of the miniatures, and it was just like an open sandbox of, you want to run guerrilla rebels in Southeast Asia, you can. You want to run cartel guys, you can. You want to, any conflict you can think of, it's represented. So that initially drew me in, and I placed an order actually with footsore miniatures of 10 miniatures, and pretty soon that turned into, I don't know, I probably have 200 Spectre miniatures, and it starts as just 10 minis, just 10, and then, oh, I need some terrain. Oh, I could use a vehicle. Oh man, it kind of spiraled out of control there in a good way. Then I, obviously, as I started to collect more miniatures and I started to want to play the game, I read the rule book, and I was amazed at the rule book. I started in version 2, obviously, and the way the rulebook just read and it was presented, and it felt right. And I loved the take on the you go, I go, that it wasn't your traditional, like 40K where my army is going to crush your army in the first move and there's nothing you can do about it. I like that it's alternating activation and that there is the opportunity for people to flip initiative. I think that's awesome. So, while I play Bolt Action and Zona Alpha and Star Wars Legion, and one or two other games, Battletech, Spectre is always going to be my main love, with a close second being Bolt Action. But Spectre is just great. You can find any scenario you would dream up, you can do. It's just great for that.
Absolutely agree on your last segment. Bolt Action will definitely be my, not even sloppy seconds, but it will definitely be one of my second focused games. And Spectre, with the sandbox aspect you're just talking about, you don't even need to think up or Google for some modern conflict. You could just do some dudes hijacking a car or robbing a convenience store or even petrol stations. You could literally do everything. You could even do without any shooting aspects, like some guy just trying to pickpocket someone. It's like there's so much potential, and this is what really brings Spectre, for me as a still relatively new guy on the wargaming scene and everything, with just 5 years on my shoulders of wargaming, just to another life. And I'm really, really disappointed that Spectre didn't or doesn't get any big attention from the wargaming community. I mean, of course, you cannot compare it to Bolt Action, which has like Warlord games behind them doing a lot of events and specials and have like their own huge miniature range in plastics. And the same goes for obviously Games Workshop with Warhammer. You cannot compare it. It still is a niche. Ultra moderns themselves are a niche because, like you said, which is very conscious of you, that people get maybe offended so soon, so to say, with a lot of conflicts and wars. But yeah, you were very lucky to start off with the version 2 rulebook.
Yes.
I was not so lucky. Besides the interesting fact that you started off with Flames of War, Bolt Action, and then to Spectre, for me it was the other way around. I started off purely with Spectre version 1, and for me, as a non-native English speaker, still I feel very confident in English. It was very hard to grasp around the rules and the concept of the game. I mean, the dice throwing and the movement, like 6-inch here and so on, this is like straightforward. But still, the lack of, if you already start talking about the rulebooks, how much version 2 is better to version 1. For you people who maybe have still the version 1 rulebook or maybe seen it on Craigslist for a few bucks and thinking to pick it up, definitely go for the version 2. It's literally a different game. It has the same core elements, that you have the 4 phases per turn, which is like the movement phase, the command phase, the tactile phase, and the actual combat and shooting phase. But as I said, the lack of examples, and not even like written examples, but like pictures, how you move the miniatures and how it's placed, because it's so complex in itself that it's like one of those rare games where the view angle of an individual miniature weighs so much in. It's not like they have a 360 view like in Bolt Action or any other games.
Yes, absolutely.
The cover system is way different than in other games. You have not your typical soft and hard cover. It depends how much is visible of the miniature. But again, to come back to the problem, for me, I had such a bad time with the version 1 rulebook, learning as an absolute pure beginner. I tried to play it with friends who was also like absolutely new to the wargaming aspect, and it just didn't work out. It wasn't fun. It was, I don't know. That's maybe why I went to Bolt Action, to cut on this topic quick, because it was already a second edition book. There was a German version because I'm German. Obviously, I bought the English one. It was just more straightforward. There were so many picture examples. And I'm pretty sure that the guys from Spectre took maybe Bolt Action or similar systems for their version 2. And they obviously, I think they wrote it even in the book, listen a lot to the community.
Yes, they did.
What they should be better and things that should be changed.
They definitely took the book and it looks like they streamlined it. They put things in a way that it makes sense to wargamers. And I listened to an interview with them and they said, we listened to, at that point, hundreds of players gave us feedback on what was working, what didn't, and they changed it. And it reads very well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love it when producers or writers listen to the community. That's like AAA service for the community. It's so great that they're not just stubborn and have like, that's my vision. I need to keep it like this, and I don't care what you guys think. Just buy it and shut up. Yeah, but it's lovely. And the version 2 formatting of the book is straight AAA. I mean, they took the effort to part the book in 2 parts. You have like in the front the core rules and basics, and there's even a split in the middle where you can go into the advanced rule, which they suggest that you, after you've done your first 2 games with the basic rules, to go and deep diving into the more advanced settings, which is like more, I don't even know by head what the advanced stuff is, but I think like...
Well, you're looking at stuff like drones and dog teams and vehicles and stealth aspects, between visual detection and being detected, by sound, infrared stuff, night vision. So there's a lot of cool aspects, and that you can kind of cherry pick, We want to play today with night vision rules. We're playing at night. There's rules for pools of light if you're underneath a street light. The next game you could add in off-table assets. Maybe it's a helicopter sniper or an artillery barrage or a rocket strike or something like that, or even a helicopter, coming in and dropping off more troops.
Yeah.
But you don't need that to play the core game. But it just, as we said, it makes it a sandbox. If it's in your conflict, you can fit it in there from World War II all the way up to, I would say, sci-fi works, with the Spectre rules. You just need to tweak it a little bit, maybe some different weapons. Obviously World War II, they're not going to have red dot sights.
Yeah.
But we definitely have talked about doing some chindits against some Japanese, a Japanese outpost or something similar with the Spectre rules, using our bolt action miniatures. But it's very versatile.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Already getting excited for seeing that battle report.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're totally right. I saw on YouTube, don't know the name of the guy who put it up, but he used the Spectre rules to play some Vietnam stuff.
Oh, yes.
And besides, his table was so beautiful with a lot of, I think it was teddy bear fur used for the very high grass. It was like some American, I think MacV SOG guys infiltrating a compound. And this was so exciting, and it worked so well with the Spectre rules. And yeah, like you said, I could absolutely imagine a World War II raid with special forces or something.
Absolutely.
And yeah, and another thing really great about Spectre, obviously they're straightforward lying to you, that you can play it with just 4 miniatures. You can actually play it with just 4 miniatures, it's more than enough. But you will be falling so hard in love with the game and with the miniature range itself if you check out the Spectre website, that you start buying more and more.
Oh my god.
And there's like even more companies doing awesome miniatures for the ultra-modern range. Just to name some, Empress miniature, we have Eureka miniatures in the 28mm range now.
Footsore North America makes miniatures.
Exactly.
And now we're seeing... both Dan and I have resin printers.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. And it is... We're in a renaissance right now as far as we are very lucky nerds for what we have coming out. The content is just so high quality.
Definitely.
It's insane.
The resin printing, a topic we could put into our own podcast, I think. And we definitely will, in the future, have an own segment about just printing in general for the hobby.
Mm-hmm.
But this podcast in general is a big love letter to the Spectre Operations rulebook and all the miniatures which sprawled from this game segment. There are some more like famous channels like Tabletop CP,
Absolutely.
which have occasionally some homemade setup campaigns which are pretty cool. You should definitely check them out. Tabletop CP on YouTube. We put a link in the description.
Absolutely. Travis has been a big inspiration as far as hobby stuff goes, and a lot of times I'll just put on one of his battle reps, even if I've seen it before, just because I love it. Speaking of which, I think one of the things that makes Spectre so appealing is, as Dan said, you can play the game with 4 miniatures. That's fine. But you know you're going to want terrain. And, okay, all of us have terrain on our war games tables, but you're like, okay, I got a couple buildings now. Well, I need a couple vehicles. There's going to be some cars parked on the street. Okay. Well, I need some dumpsters and, like maybe some trash bags, maybe some newspaper stands. Pretty soon you're, searching the internet for 28mm air conditioning units. Yeah. You're like, well, I need this. And in fairness, those things can play a role in the game. That's cover in Spectre. It's not just eye candy, but pretty much, you look at a Spectre board and it's eye candy between the miniatures and the terrain. It's pleasant to look at. It's awesome.
And it adds so much to the game. I've played a lot of games with just grey miniatures, like just primed, and I started even out with cardboard cut-ups for buildings and things, which just with tape made up. And it was fun already, but if you start actually getting into real painted up terrain and putting the time and effort, it's so important because the game just feels and looks so triple times better than it is without it. It doesn't mean that it's not good with great terrain, but it is definitely AAA with terrain, which is beautiful. You talked about the ACs. Not only they can be used as cover, but you can also incorporate, for example, them into your games. Like if you, maybe not the ACs, but maybe you could, like if you cut the wires.
Absolutely.
And they stop working for a room, you could set up a game where maybe the, DNA sample, which is like in this fridge type of room, starts to heat up and you need to bring it to the truck to extract it in so and so many turns. And everything, or like even starting to check the trash cans or hide in the trash cans. There's like this is really, Sandbox doesn't even do it justice. It's if you have the inspiration, if you have the imagination for your games, it's just perfect.
You can make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you can make it happen. So Dan, we've been kind of talking about the game here, but we're going to date this episode a little bit. But some of Spectre, they just released a new line of miniatures that they are calling the Covert and Overt miniatures.
Yeah, and they're really covert and overt. It's a revolution, in my view. Especially for Spectre, to take it in account. They have this game mechanic in the advanced section where you can have a covert miniature, which is like hiding his gun under his jacket or in his sports bag or whatever. and walking, moving around the game table, and either your opponent already knows that it is him, but he cannot engage him because he cannot identify him, which works game-wise with an inspect roll, which you can do in one of the 4 phases of the game. But also means that when he goes from covert to overt, that he pulls out his gun and goes like AWOL and can shoot up the place, more or less, or whatever is his mission. Personally, I have never used this game mechanic yet, but I know you have done it.
Yeah, I have. It's kind of cool because one of the cool aspects of Spectre is that you can use civilian models. And first off, they add to the atmosphere of the game.
Oh, yes.
But it's cool where your team is coming into an area where you're trying to accomplish a task, but there's an enemy around you and you don't know who it is. And it could be that, the civilians are moving randomly and the person who's controlling the opposing force who's disguised as civilians, it might not be all of them, it might not be any of them. Those civilians are moving around and you don't know who is going to be an issue, in the future. So what's really cool about these packs, and we had talked about this prior to this, but with the covert overt packs, there are 6 different miniatures and they come in a 2-pack. It's the same person in 2 different sculpts per pack. One is the covert stance or
casual civilian plainclothes style.
Yeah, maybe a tourist, a guy walking down the road looking at his cell phone. And then the other is that same man who was just looking at his cell phone. He's now holding a submachine gun pointing down at your team as they're coming around the corner. So it's really cool. Part of it is, your opponent might know, hey, that guy in the orange long sleeve shirt, I know that's his covert overt miniature, but he might not be the one that's the covert overt person. So, there's a lot of cool opportunities, and I think it's cool that you can keep it consistent where, in some of our games, we'd have one of the civilians we have is, like a 12-year-old boy, and all of a sudden he gets found out that he's, an insurgent. All of a sudden he's a 40-year-old man with a beard. All of a sudden he's no longer that 12-year-old. It gets a little consistency, but, we can write that off. It's still a really cool mechanic, so it's cool that they're incorporating these miniatures that go along with the rules of the game, because that covert overt thing is pretty unique to Spectre, at least as far as games that I've played. I'm sure there are games out there that might incorporate something similar, but I think it's cool.
Definitely is cool.
For sure.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think this is a very long ask for by the community to get some of those specific sculpts. If I recall correctly, they said it's very hard to do the same miniature in 2 different poses in a traditional sculpting manner with the green stuff or some other putty style. That's why a lot of the new ranges from Spectre and this one as well, the covered overt, are 3D sculpted miniatures. That way they can repose them just, by having the bone structure like in the software. It's like easier, and you can still have the same sculpt. I think other one which are also 3D designed are the Insurgent PMCs, the newer Delta Force ones.
Yes. I think the Delta Force were their first release where they were sculpted in a CAD system and then made into a master, and then they make them into the metal miniatures, it's pretty cool. It's a really cool technology to have. It allows consistency between miniatures and whatever. Yeah. And one thing, a really common gripe that people have with the Spectre miniatures, and we've all experienced it, is the barrels.
Yeah.
Because one thing that we love about Spectre miniatures, both Dan and I, we've talked about this probably endlessly, is that they're real scale. Yeah. They're not heroic. They don't have overly large weapons or overly large heads or hands. It's all properly, proportioned. And along with that is the weapons are a little bit thin. And sometimes that leads to bent or snapped barrels, which, quite frankly, sucks.
Big time.
In their defense, Spectre has really good customer service where you email them up and they'll respond to you in a couple days. You're like, hey, I have a broken barrel. It came broken, and they'll send you out a replacement, pretty much hassle-free. They might ask for a picture or something, but that's pretty normal. I've had to contact their customer service, and it's been really great to work with, especially considering that the company is, I think, 3 people right now. So that's pretty amazing. But they are, working to fix that with their new sculpts. The new sculpts are now not just a single-piece miniature. Some of them are, but a lot of them are now coming with separate arms and weapons. So that reduces the amount of miniatures that get beat up or barrels bent or snapped. I mean, anybody who plays with metal miniatures, you know that you're going to have to bend barrels, and there's ways to do that, either the hot water method or, putting it in a hot sand bath from your oven, to straighten it out. That's part of life as a miniature hobbyist. But it's cool that they're taking steps, and I think that was a feedback thing. Plus, it's probably costing them money to have to send a new batch of miniatures out to a customer. So I'm sure that's a motivator, but they're making steps to fix the issue that people are having. And do other manufacturers have these issues? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But, that's just one of people's gripes about the Spectre miniatures. So.
Yeah, definitely. I'm one of those people. I love the rules, but I love the miniatures because they're true scale, not the chunky toy gun feeling looking guys. But I cannot recall one order where I didn't have over 90 degrees bent barrels, which of course, as you said, hot water, just bend them slowly so they don't snap off. And it worked fine, but I also had some orders where there was like the weapon completely snapped off, especially if it's like pistol or like one-handed SMGs things. But again, the customer service is great. They reply very fast. They're not so fast in sending the replacement, but that's due to their caster being not so fast, or let's say not so fast, it's maybe negative said, but they're like overwhelmed with work. I think COVID obviously is another reason this complete hobby of miniature is going so overboard, with people staying at home and having more time than ever to attend their hobbies and projects. But to be fair, they're good people, they have good intention. I really hope they get their quality checking up to the next level. I heard from some people they are changing their main casting guy or company, so maybe we even get sooner than expected. Oh, and with the rest of replacement I bought the Aftermath kill team, which are the pretty cool guys with old Soviet CRBN suits and old Soviet gas mask. I had like 2 miniatures which were super miscasted, and I sent me a free replacement for all 6 of them, which I did not expect, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just to pin that up there, that they're pretty cool.
Yeah, they take care of their customers, which is good. And I'm sure that there have been hiccups all over the place, and, they're people too. It's one of those things where you just kind of learn to live with it, and they do fix their mistakes, which is good. Or not mistakes, but sometimes things get missed. And I think that this is a personal opinion and observation, seeing as I've been doing this hobby, the Ultramoderns, since 2020, early 2020. It seems that they're kind of victims of success. They didn't expect to be selling stuff like they are. Not only that, but they got hit with a pandemic, and then they had flooding in the UK for a time where their caster was out of his shop for a while, is what I understood. And people are snapping these things up like crazy. As soon as a restock comes in, word goes out on the Facebook page or whatever, and all of a sudden they're gone. So it's a lot of times same day. So, I mean, people like it. And one of the really awesome things about Spectre is that they don't expect you to just use their miniatures. You can use whatever modern miniatures you want, or non-modern miniatures, if it's World War II or sci-fi, whatever. It doesn't matter, So that's cool in the fact that you can explore different ranges, and everybody's got a different take on stuff. There's just so much you can do. So that's definitely worth saying.
Yeah, but coming back to the COVID over things, I know that you didn't manage to get your hands on them yet, but for me, which is more Europe oriented with Germany, I managed to, I bought them. It was again a hefty order, but again, I had them on hand, I had a look on them, I did not manage to paint them up yet, but they're very nice casts. As you said already, they are one of the newer ones. They are multi-part models, so you have the gun and hands. On most of them are a single piece, which you glue in a cutout square, so it's not like you have to figure out where it goes. Pretty straightforward. And so far, they look very awesome. I'm really excited to glue them and paint them and base them up. And as soon as I have, we will share some pictures and more insight. But that's not like the only thing which is going on and which is new. There was some COVID packs, which are limited edition sets recently, and they also had like first time COVID resin packs. I had bought as well some. I was not super happy with them. I mean, of course, the limited edition COVID packs, which have usually they're like some leftovers from Kickstarters or something.
Yeah, you usually get like 1 or 2 hard to find miniatures.
Usually.
Is historically what it's been like. Yeah.
I had been one of the very unlucky guys who did not receive not even one limited edition one. But of course I will not complain, because I got like 6 miniatures and they were like cheaper if I had bought them separately. And the resin packs were also a little bit of a disappointment. I thought there would be like more stuff, but I got like parts for Humvees and miscasted things. I do got 2 of those, what's it called, objective resin items. Like one was the suitcase bomb, which is super cool. It has a hole on the bottom from casting, but to be honest, I don't give a shit. It will be glued anyways on some base or something. So
yeah.
And the other one was like a stack of CDs, which is like, oh, it's so crisp, it's awesome. So even for that one, it was already worth of it.
But it was a little disappointing that you got Humvee axles or whatever it was,
Yeah, Humvee wheels and door windows, those reinforced windows and things. But I figured something out to get the use of them. There's a rumor, not a rumor, but an indication, which Ben knows a little bit more about it. It's like there was some talk about the new organized crime packs or range from Spectre, which are the Yakuza. Maybe you can enlighten us with some of your deep knowledge.
Well, this is probably old news at this point, but this is coming from the Rules of Engagement podcast, which I had just actually listened to today for my umpteenth time on my drive home from work. They had been talking about expanding their lines, and I think that, as we had talked about, they're just kind of trying to stay afloat with everything that's going on. So this news came from way back when I started the Spectre journey. But they had been talking about casting up some Yakuza and possibly Russian gangsters, a lot along the lines of the John Wick movies. And they do have the Baba Yaga miniature currently, so that would be really cool. I have one of the non-limited edition ones where he's just got his pistol. I'm looking at it right now, and I love that miniature, and it's so cool for if you want to reenact some John Wick style action. It's a must.
And there's special rules for him.
Yeah, there's special rules under the download section of their website. They're free. You just go check them out. He's got some pretty slick special rules. He's basically a one-man army, so that's pretty neat. So I think that Spectre, it seems like, they're trying to stay afloat, but there's still new ideas coming out. And Dan had mentioned some of the new sculpts. I have the Third World PMC guys, and there's some of the multi-part casts, and they are excellent miniatures, and they're going to be super fun to run as some bad guys or some maybe a sprinkling of professionalism in a trained or militia force. So I'm super excited to get those guys painted up. So I think that, Spectre's got more stuff in the pipe, but they're kind of trying to play catch up, which is completely understandable, trying to get product in the hands of people who want it. So
yeah, I think they still have a huge back order issue. I remember when I put my last order, not the current with the COVID over, the order before that, I got lured in for the October 2020 limited edition miniature, which was the Mini Me Mouse.
Yes.
Which is actually a pretty cool sculpt. It's like a girl which has one of those theme park Minnie Mouse, not a hat, it's a hat, not a hat, but a hat. And she has a skirt and like typical, I don't know, let's say even anime inspired looks. I think a leather jacket or some sort of college jacket.
Yeah.
And she's sporting a mini-me, which is like the saw.
Yeah, the M249.
Yeah, exactly. And I think even this one is one of the newer 3D because it's a multi-part model. The gun as well is a single cast, and I had no bent barrel issues. And yeah, so coming back to that, I ordered on October 2020. And obviously, since I want to save on shipping, I dropped some more miniatures in it. And I also thought, okay, let's just go for those which are not on stock, because they said like something between 6 and 8 weeks will take time, which is fine by me because I don't have to lie to myself. I have like a huge pile of unpainted miniature, not even Spectres or other game systems. So I have managed to today to base the Mini-Me already and prime, but I have not touched it yet to paint. so much for that. But besides that, it took 6 months to get a shipment out from October and March, and then to get the replacement for the Aftermath theme, it took another 3 months, which is fine, of course. We're taking it slow. We have enough projects to do. But this showed me that they're having a huge backlog with orders, and they cannot come over it. Like you already said, a very fitting thing is like they're big victims of their success, and they're struggling with it. So yeah, keep that in mind.
If they keep offering miniatures, I'm going to keep buying them.
Absolutely.
I love the miniatures they're coming out with, and there's just so much out there to support the game, that's not Spectre made. So if you're jonesing and you can get a copy of the rulebook, which is usually you're able to get a copy of the rulebook. There are a couple places in the US that are carrying it as well. If you can get a copy of the rulebook, you can absolutely play with other manufacturers. I know I've said that like 10 times already, but you don't need the Spectre miniatures to play Spectre Operations.
Actually, you don't even need any miniatures to play Spectre Operations. I did for myself a Pocket Spectre project, which actually is just some type of buttons with a 90-degree angle at the front. I have tried it once. It's pretty fun, but obviously it does not beat beautiful miniatures on a beautiful setup table. But yeah the rules are agnostic, so that's pretty cool. Miniature agnostics,
Yeah.
Which sellers do have miniatures from Spectres and the book in the States? Because I'm pretty sure most of the listeners will be from the United States.
Probably. The big one is Black Site Studios, which is an MDF terrain company, but they've also branched out into 3D printed miniatures, and I think they're probably doing some casting miniatures, but they have a small selection of resin products that they are casting in Texas and selling on their website, and they have the rulebook, and typically they are working directly with Spectre, so they probably are one of the first to get a restock, when things run dry. But there are several companies that have it. Kick-Ass Mail Order sometimes has it. If you search that, it's through Adventure Games in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. There's a place, Hole in the Wall Hobbies. They used to carry some products there in Texas. There is the Griffin's Lair, I believe. They're on the East Coast. And there is Discover Games out of Atlanta. They have some Spectre miniatures and the book for sale occasionally. Of course, as of right now, the only place that's really carrying the metal miniatures for Spectre is the actual Spectre website, and that's just by pure nature of them needing to supply themselves before they can give it to another retailer to sell. So hopefully in the future with a new caster, maybe that'll catch up and it'll be available for retail from other businesses or companies.
Yeah. Besides that, I already heard from various people on our exclusive unofficial Discord regarding Spectre, which we will come later again back. But I heard that the shipping now mostly with DHL.
Yes.
And that it takes from 3 to 1 week maximum.
We've had stuff delivered pretty much next day to East Coast in our group.
Yeah, which is insane from UK.
Yeah, it is.
Over the pond.
You pay for it, but it gets there.
Well, you have just to buy more miniatures, then it's free shipping for you.
That's right.
Obviously, easy choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, but besides that, it's cool. In terms of Europe, I know there was one time a German shop which is called Fantasy World, which is like Fantasy World, and they have a huge range of miniatures and tabletop things. And for sometimes they had some Spectre miniatures. I'm not 100% sure that's official, because Spectre also states on their website that they do not have any retailers and not really some intention to have some. So they probably just bought some miniatures from Spectre and put it up on the shop.
Could be.
But if you're in Europe and you don't want to get the Brexit hammer with the taxes and customs and everything, maybe just Google Spectre miniatures, probably will pop up your country and thing. Besides that, what really cool is, Spectre, they also sent a newsletter about this topic, is they're taking the effort to add for each shipment the correct harmonized tariff code for customs. So which means that if you're one of the sad countries like I am in Germany, which everything gets like taxed from 1 cent to hundreds euros, dollars, whatever, this helps a lot covering the taxes. Even I'm speaking Germany, and I think most of Europe has a special agreement with UK regarding some products. And I think these miniatures, which fall under the toy tariff code things, are exempt from customs. So actually in my last shipment, I only had to pay for the VAT, for the value added tax, which still is nearly 20% on top of it. But it's better than have 20% and the custom tax on top. So just as a quick note, it's a big thing they're doing for the customers, and I really appreciate it a lot. Yeah. Speaking of this, Discord. What did I heard about it, Ben?
Yeah, one thing we're a part of is the Spectre Operations wargaming community, which is an unofficial Discord for Spectre Operations. Right now we have about 100 members. There's a heavy presence of people from the United States and from the UK, but we have people from all over, including South America, Europe proper. So it's pretty cool. Hopefully more people will be coming to it, but there's conversations going on pretty much all day. We'll drop a link in the description for the podcast if you'd like to check it out.
Yeah, it was actually on the subreddit for Spectre. Someone asked if there's an Spectre Discord, and Ben did work to search for it and noticed that there's actually none of it, and took the initiative, in true Spectre manners, the initiative, to start up Spectre-related community server, and it blew up a little bit. I mean, it's not like we're promoting it everywhere and every time. I think you wrote once or twice in the Facebook group.
Yeah.
Because Spectre themselves are very focused on Facebook. Sadly, not so much on Instagram, and as far as I know, not at all at Discord and other social media things. But I'm really in love with the group. The guys, everybody, they're so nice. We're adding each other information, things, tips and tricks, miniatures. We started with a directory of modern producers who do modern miniatures, from 2D printing to caster to resin to metal to everything worldwide, so that you have like a directory to find them. We have started with doing a player directory. At least we have now flares for your country and even for the states, because it's so big. Some more statewide and even metro areas, as requested by some of our members. And we are still working on a true Spectre player directory, which will be custom programmed by a buddy of mine to not take the fame to myself. Yeah, it's a little bit complicated, but I want to keep it all in the Spectre group, and I don't want to have so many information, because we all know with the data and information problems, leaks and things, it's kind of sensitive. So the idea is more or less you type in what games you play, where you're from, and what country. Yeah, and you can see it in this appropriate channel, but you can also search for it with a special command, and like type in, I don't know, for example, New York area or just New York, and then it pops up. Everybody who made a listing from themselves in New York area will show, and then you can just click on their name and contact them without the need of any valuable information or sensitive information like clear names and email or whatever. And that's our goal, to bring the community closer. Because obviously Spectre is still a niche, as we talked about it in the start, and is small. In Germany, I managed to meet, or not in person, but to get in touch with 2 more other Germans who play Spectre. With one, I hopefully have soon a game when this COVID craze is getting a little bit lighter. But yeah, that's the main outline for Discord, is just to bring people who are interested together, who doesn't really, which hates Facebook. Yeah, I will just say it, which hates Facebook. I'm not a big fan of Facebook. I hate it. I don't want to say it's old people social media, but I don't know. It's just not up to date to today's standards.
Discord is nice because you can have a conversation with somebody in real time. It's not making a comment and waiting for someone to reply. It's,
True.
hey, here's a picture of a project I'm working on. Someone can be like, oh man, I love that color. What is it? Where'd you get this miniature? So it's really cool that we are able to connect. I mean, Dan's in Germany and I'm in Wisconsin in the United States. So we're thousands of miles apart and 7 hours away. But here we are talking, Spectre. So it's really a really cool thing. And again, this is not anything that's like endorsed by Spectre. It's just something that we saw that there was maybe people wanting to have something, and it started small and now it's getting a little bit bigger, and it's great. It's a great group of people. Couldn't ask for anything better. So again, it's unofficial. Who knows? Maybe Spectre will start their own someday. Fingers crossed. And we won't have to do it ourselves here. But and again, we're just doing this stuff because we love it. we're here for the fun. We're here for hanging out with each other and rolling some dice and telling some stories and maybe having a beverage. And yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Speaking about rolling of dice, I just will throw this shortly in, but we are working also not on high demand, but we are working on to get some tabletop simulator thing going with Spectre so that we can have all over the world some games, so playtest something, you know, I have some great idea for scenario campaign, but I'm not sure, let's playtest it. And obviously, you know, on a PC it's just like clickety-click here and there, and then you can play it without building a table.
There are a couple of people in our group who are apparently super talented and have just been like, hey, I just made this. And it's like there's this guy on there. I'm sorry, I forget the name off the top of my head because he's just got his Discord handle. But he's just like, hey, here's a map that I made. And then he'll be gone for like a week. And then he'll pop up with another one. You know, it's awesome. We have a collection of talent that's all over the place, from people who are graphic designers to people who do video and audio, to people who are painters, to people who are just like, I just want to drink beer and roll dice. Yeah. I mean, that's a talent in my book. So it's cool, the blend of people that we have there.
That's true. I just looked it up. The guy who did the tabletop simulation file is Wisner. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. But he put up a collection of assets for the tabletop simulator. And yeah, it's great. We have a separate channel on the Discord. Just join us. Be part of the group, of the movement. Join us and check it out.
And there's also Robson Femboli, FM Belloli.
Yeah, this guy who made the map, yeah.
Is that the same one?
No, it's another one. Robson FM Belloli. I'm sorry if we are pronouncing it wrong.
Yeah. Sorry, man, but your work is awesome. I'm super stoked about it.
Absolutely. He did the maps, which looks great. And we have one guy from South America, Choa. He does some 3D sculpting, and he did some, out of the bed, we just had some discussion. He made some new hostages, a female hostage with a bag over the head as an STL file, and he just dropped it in a folder for us free to download. So it's amazing, the people who come together. It's pure good vibes. It's awesome. Yeah, I just love it.
Absolutely.
And yeah, before we start brabbling and jerking each other off more than we are already doing, really thanks for listening. If you managed to stay awake until here and didn't get bored, we're planning to do this as a regular thing, like a monthly podcast, which we'll aim around the same time between this 1 hour. Feel free to send us some feedback if you have some ideas, or if you have even some things you would like to talk about. Maybe we can incorporate that in the next podcast. You can reach us under thetablesedgegamingclub@gmail.com. Feel free to write us emails. Don't put us for any weird porn or spam mail.
Yeah, we'd appreciate that.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And and we have planned to maybe have some special intermediate between the monthly thing, special podcasts with special guests. Who knows? We have maybe something planned, maybe not. I will not spoil the beans yet. And yeah, we are here for the fun. We love it. We are happy. I hope you enjoyed it. Ben?
Absolutely. You guys take care. Keep gaming. Roll some sixes.
Roll some sixes.
Don't move! Don't fucking move! Put your hands in the air! Put your hands